Hello class, today we're going to be learning about converting decimals to fractions. So we'll be looking at terminating decimals, turning them back into fractions, and either single digit or complete decimal that's repeating back into a fraction. So let's begin. We're going to start off by looking at the 41 fraction to decimals that I'm going to expect you to memorize. So let's see if we can write them all down. So here we go. What I'd like for you to do on your notebook paper is actually write all of these down, okay? Write all the fractions and their decimal equivalents as I write them. So you got 1/2, so that's 0.5. 1/3, 0.3 with a bar. 2/3, 0.6 with a bar. 1/4, 0.25. 3/4, 0.75. I don't know what happened there. 1/5, 0.2. 2/5, 0.4. 3/5, 0.6. 4/5, 0.8. 1/6, 0.16 with a bar on the 6. 5/6, 0.83 with a bar on the 3. Oh, the sevens. 1/7, 0.14287 with a bar. 2/7, 0.285714 with a bar. 3/7, 0.42857 with a bar. 4/7, 0.571428 with a bar. 5/7, 0.714285 with a bar. And 6/7, 0.857142 with a bar. Those are some good ones. 1/8, 0.125. 3/8, 0.62, no, not 0.6, sorry about that. 0.375. 5/8, 0.625. 7/8, 0.875. 1/9, 0.1 with a bar. 2/9, 0.2 with a bar. 4/9, 0.4 with a bar. 5/9, 0.5 with a bar. 7/9, 0.7 with a bar. 8/9, 0.8 with a bar. 1/10, 0.1. 3/10, 0.3. 7/10, 0.7. 9/10, 0.9. 1/11, 0.09 with a bar. 2/11, 0.18 with a bar. 3/11, 0.27 with a bar. 4/11, 0.36 with a bar. 5/11, 0.45 with a bar. 6/11, 0.54 with a bar. 7/11, 0.63 with a bar. 8/11, 0.72 with a bar. 9/11, 0.81 with a bar. And 10/11, 0.90 with a bar. So for those of you that are Model A students, over the next several weeks after I give you some time to memorize these, I'm going to give you a quiz, and I'm going to write down all of the fractions, and you're going to give me all of the decimals, and you're only going to have 5 minutes to do it. Well, if you'll notice, right now we're still less than 5 minutes into this video. So if I can do it, so can you. All we have to do is memorize the patterns. So that's what we're going to be working on over the next several days. Okay, so today, what we're going to do is we will learn how to convert decimals to fractions and to mixed numbers. Okay, so what standards are we working on right now? Well, right now we're working on 7th grade standards along with the 8th grade one that goes along with this 7-1E. Create and use representations to organize and record and communicate mathematical ideas. So that's what we're going to be looking at. So let's begin. So first question I have for you is, how do you change a fraction to a decimal? Well, that's what we talked about yesterday. Well, all we have to do is divide the top by the bottom. Okay, top in, bottom out, divide. That's what you learned back in 5th and 6th grade. So you take the numerator, put it inside the house, and divide by the denominator. Okay, what if you had a mixed number, though? Well, you do it the same exact way, but it's just the fraction part's what's going to turn into a decimal. The whole part you just put in the front. That's all you got to do. Okay, so let's see if we can do that. So here we got 3 4/5. So what you would do if you had to is take that 4 and divide it by the 5. Okay, so if you do that, you actually get 0.8 as your decimal. Well, this 3 right here, well, that's going to be a whole number, whether it's a fraction or a decimal. So you just put the 3 in front of the decimal. And that's all you have to do for a mixed number. Okay, now, what about other things? Because our lesson today is about changing decimals into fractions, not fractions into decimals. So let's see if we can actually try a few. Okay, so here are some decimals to fractions. So how would we go about changing each of these decimals into a fraction? Well, I'll be real honest. The easiest way to do this is just say it correctly. So How do we change a terminating decimal into a fraction? All you have to do is say the decimal correctly using place value. So, 0.5. When I say it is 0.5, am I saying it using place value? No. So we would say it is 5/10. And that's exactly how you write it. 5/10. Now you have a fraction. Now all you have to do is simplify that fraction. So we know we can divide this 5 by 5, divide the 10 by 5, and you end up with 1/2. Well, 0.25, you'd say that is 25 hundredths. So you'd write it as 25 hundredths. You would divide both of those by 25, and you would simplify down to 1/4. Real simple. Those are two that we should have memorized. But then we have this last one here, 0.325. Well, 0.325 is 325 thousandths, and then you proceed to simplify. Now, I know on our calculators there is a feature on the calculator that allows us to change decimals back into fractions. But if we don't learn how to do it by hand, then I will make sure that I give you decimals that your calculator cannot handle, because there are a few. Okay, so keep that in mind. You have to know how to do this by hand. Okay, so we've got the 325 and the 1,000. So now, if you get that, well, that tells me you know how to change the decimal back into a fraction. Now what we're working on is the simplifying part. So what we've got to do is figure out two numbers, or figure out a number that I can divide both of these numbers by. Well, I know this one ends in a 25 and ends in a double zero, so I know 25 will go into it. So if I were to divide both of those by 25, okay, so, well, let me just pull up a calculator here, and we can actually do that. So here's my calculator. We slide it over here, make it a little bit smaller, and we just do 325 divided by 25, and you end up with 13. And you do the same thing with 1,000, divided by 25, and you come up with 40. Simple. Now, to check that to see if it actually worked, take the 13, divide it by 40, and see if you get that decimal back. And you do, 0.325. So that's all you have to do in order to change a decimal back to a fraction, is just say it correctly. So please write on your paper in your notes, how do I change a terminating decimal to a fraction? You just say it correctly using place value. Real simple. Well, we also have to work with repeating decimals. Okay, so the ones that we're going to work with are just either single-digit repeaters, or if the entire decimal repeats. Next week, we'll figure out a way to change decimals back into fractions if only part of the decimal repeats. But we'll worry about that next week. So, what about 4 with a bar? How would I go about changing that? Now, does anybody remember what fraction actually gives us 4 with a bar? Well, if we were to go back to our fraction list, here's our fraction list. Is there any one of those that gives us 0.4 with a bar? Oh, look at there. There's our 4 with a bar. Now, the next one you'll notice was 8 with a bar. So, what was it? Okay, so we've got 4 ninths and 8 ninths. So, let's come back down. So, 4 with a bar is 4 ninths. 8 with a bar is 8 ninths. Now, do you notice anything in common with both of those? Excellent. Hopefully you notice that the denominator is 9. Well, if I were to have just 0.4, we'll hopefully know that that is 4/10. Well, here's kind of the thing. This is what I need you to understand about those two decimals. 0.4, if I were to extend it and write more numbers, I would add zeros after it because it doesn't continue. But if I do 0.4 with a bar, to continue that, you would actually have to use the 4 that keeps repeating. So that tells me that this number right here is actually a little bit bigger than this number right here. Okay, so in order to make a fraction a little bit bigger, we make the denominator a little bit smaller, and then that makes that piece that represents that a little bit larger. So what we basically do for every number that has a repeat bar on it, instead of putting a 10 like we would do with a terminating decimal, we put a 9 on the bottom because it's a repeating decimal. Okay, so let's see if we can do a couple more. Let's just see. Well, what if I had 0.45 with a bar? What do you think I would do with that? Well, was that one of the ones that we had to memorize also? Well, if we were to come back here and look, 0.45 with a bar, there it is, 5/11ths. But what would it actually start off as? Well, what we just determined was that if I put a 9 for a repeating digit, what if I took the 45 and put a 99 on the bottom? What would I get if I actually divided that out? Type that in on your calculator and see what happens. 45 divided by 99. Oh, did you get 0.45, 45, 45, and so on? Yes, you did. Okay, so 45 over 99 will give us that 0.454545. And if I simplify 45 over 99, it simplifies down to 5 over 11. Now, what if I had 321 with a bar over the whole thing? Do you think that would be any different? Well, in this one right here, what you find out is that you take the 321, put it on top, and on the bottom, for each digit that repeats, you put a 9 on the bottom. So this one gives you 321 over 999. Now, what would that simplify to? Well, we got to figure out, what do these two numbers have in common? And what they have in common is a 3. That's about it. So the 9s all have a 3 in common, okay, and the 321, well, to determine if it's got a 3 in common is I could add them all up. And if I can divide it by 3, then I know I can divide the whole thing by 3. So 321 is divisible by 3, and you end up with 107 over 333. And that would be your simplified answer. So what we're going to be working on today is changing decimals back into those fractions. Okay, so for terminating decimals, we just say it correctly. But what did we do with repeating decimals? Repeating decimals, basically you take the decimal number and you put it on top. Okay, so if the whole decimal is repeating, you put the decimal as the numerator, and you put a 9 for each repeating digit in the decimal for the denominator. So what I'd like for you to do is write that down in your notes along with these two examples, and then we'll do a couple more. Okay, so let's find out if we can do a few more here. So here are some just to see if you understand what it is that you're supposed to do. So the first thing that you need to look at, first thing you need to look at is determine, is the decimal a terminating decimal or is it a repeating decimal? Okay, so in this first one, 5.6, what kind of a decimal is that? That's a terminating decimal. It's a decimal that's stopped. Okay, so the part that we're changing into a fraction is just the decimal part. What are we going to do with that 5 as a whole part? We just leave it in the front. So because it's 5 and it's going to be a whole part, whether it's a fraction or a decimal. So we get 5, and then the 6, because it's terminating. What do we have to do because it's terminating? What are we doing? We just say it correctly using place value. That's all we have to do. Okay, so 0.6, how do we say it correctly? 6/10. So we write it as 6/10. And then last but not least, you must simplify your answer. So 5 and 6/10 simplifies to 3/5. Very good. Or did I do something wrong? Yeah, if you'll notice in this one, this whole part, you've got to carry it along with the simplified version. 5 and 6/10 is the same as 5 and 3/5. Don't throw away the whole part once you have it written down. Next one, 7.582. Terminating or repeating? Good, terminating. So this one's going to be 7 and then the 582, we would say it is 582 over 1,000 because it's 582 thousandths. And then, of course, we have to try to simplify that. Okay, so first write the 7 down, and then the 582 and the 1,000, I could divide them both by 2. And if you divide them both by 2, you end up with 291 over 500. And believe it or not, that's as far as it will go. Okay, so that would be your final simplified answer. Okay, and then the last one, 3.27 repeating. Okay, so the 3, whether it's terminating or repeating, always goes in the front. Now that 27 with a bar, what did we say to do with it? Take the whole decimal, put it as the numerator, and for each repeating digit, you put a 9 in the denominator. So we end up with 3 and 27/99, which would then simplify to 3. And if you divide them both by 9, you end up with 3 4/11 is my final answer. Okay, so what are we going to be doing today then? Okay, what am I going to have you do? Well, on your assignment today, that's exactly what you're working on. I'm going to give you a decimal, and I want you to turn it back into the fraction. Now, what you're going to do on your assignment is, first, you're going to give me an unsimplified version. Then you're going to give me the simplified version, if it simplifies. Okay, so I need to see both in order to receive credit. So let's review. So how do you change a terminating decimal into a fraction? Well, you just say it correctly using place value. And then, of course, last but not least, you must simplify. That's right, you must simplify. Okay, so how do I change a repeating decimal into a fraction? If the whole decimal is repeating, you put the decimal as the numerator, and you put a 9 for each repeating digit in the decimal for the denominator. And then, of course, you must simplify. And that's what I'm going to have you do on this assignment. So the assignment that we're working on has got 20 questions on it, and I would like for you to change each one of them into its fractional equivalent or mixed number equivalent, because if it's got a whole number like number 5 here, it's going to be a mixed number. Now remember, in order to receive credit, you've got to give me simplified or unsimplified and simplified. So in this first one, we got 0.34. It's terminating, so we're going to write 34 hundredths, and then we're going to simplify. So 34 and 100, they both have a 2 in common. So 34 divided by 2 gives me 17. 100 divided by 2 gives me 50. So you end up with 17 over 50. Now, one way to check your answer is you take the fraction that you came up with as your final answer and divide it, 17 divided by 50, and see if you get the decimal back. So that's an easy way to make sure that your answer is correct, especially on some of these repeating decimals. So let's take a look at number 9. It's your first repeating decimal. Okay, so we got 0.7 with a bar. So we take the decimal, we put it on top. And what do we put for repeating digits on the bottom? A 9. So we end up with 7 over 9. Now, can you simplify that? Nope, it's as simple as it gets. So you're done. So on this assignment, please give me unsimplified, simplified. If it doesn't simplify any further, then you're done with that problem. So you're going to answer questions 1 through 20. Okay? So until next time, I'll talk to you later.